Live. Yes. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Burning Subjects. This is episode 6, I think.
Yeah, Burning Subjects, episode 6.
Yes, and in this podcast, we're going to be talking about the top 11 underrated Steam Excursion stars, with over I don't even know how many there are out there operating. With probably, let's just say, like over 2,000 steam locomotives operating or preserved today, it's fair to say that we have quite a lot to work with. A lot of variety, but sometimes some of the most distinguished locomotives are pushed aside because other better performing locomotives are brought out into the spotlight and are, of course, enjoyed more. So from locomotives that retired a long time ago to locomotives that still run today, barely, we're going to be talking about the top 11 underrated steam excursion stars. Now, before anything, we actually get into the list. Any commentary?
I'd just like to mention that at this moment we're kind of short because Dan would usually be here, and he famously joined the last episode right after Andrew cut off the stream. So, yeah, that explains why Dan wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I think Simba's online right now.
And, well.
He is, but we'll have to wait and see if he joins. Hopefully Dan will be able to get his Canadian ass in here because we're going to talk about a Canadian locomotive.
Yes, there is one Canadian locomotive on this list, which is actually going to be pretty rare from now on because, well, most of the time we talk about locomotives that were born in America and serving in America.
Canadian locomotive, Jim. He's online.
It's happening.
Yes, he's going to explode.
He's going to be horrified about the meme that I sent of him. He's going to be horrified for life.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about Canadian locomotives on this list, we're going to be talking about, well, only one, which in particular stands out because, one, short-lived career, and two, how unique it really was.
I think I have an idea what it is.
All right, but don't spoil it yet. But either way, once Dan hopefully joins.
Send me a message. Let me just notify him this real quick.
Who joined?
You there? It's Steven.
Hello, Steven. You ready for this episode?
He just got off from school.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, either way, let's go on to number 11.
Maybe save your Canadian locomotive for later.
It's on the later part of the list either way. So, let's get to the list. Number 11.
Oh. Fuck, hang on. I have to...
So what's number 11?
Well, I'm going to wait for Jim to return, and then I will mention number 11, which, to be honest, is...
This may take a while. I actually have to go water the plants, and that may take up to half an
hour. Oh, okay. Well, then we will do number 11 without you. Just
notify me the engine's in the list. I'm going to deafen myself.
Okay.
Notify me through DMs.
Yes.
On what I missed.
All right. Number 11. Lake Superior and Isframing 33. This apparently obscure 280 was outshot by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1923, and was used as a mission gate, an iron ore hauler. Wow, iron ore hauler, until their inevitable retirement in the 50s. there were only 3 preserved, which of these
Can you
3
hear me
were.
now? Because a fucking thing decided to disconnect and go to default voice.
We heard you.
Hold on. Why can't I hear anybody? Hello?
Hello?
Lord,
We can hear you fine, Steven.
have mercy. Discord, why?
Steven, we're on.
Discord decided to change the microphone and all that shit to default.
So,
Okay. Well,
are we going to continue with 33?
yes. Number 11 is 33. And, well, of these 3 chunky consolidations, I mean, well, not 3, but there were actually 40 produced. Only 3 survived today. Those being 33, 34, and 35, which 34 we've talked about before, which, operated on the western... Hello.
Yes. You're fine.
Okay.
Fuck.
Either way. 33 was bought by Jerry Joe Jacobson for his collection, and 34
What
and 35 were both sold to the Illinois Railroad Museum, where 35 remains to this day. But 33 and 34 didn't have to remain on display for too long. We already talked about 34. Today we're talking about 33. 33 was sold to the Ohio Central Railroad, where it operates barely today. Even though the restoration of the locomotive brought it back to life in brand new condition, they, to say the least, they try to baby the locomotive, but it tries to run loose. And to say the least, it's taken a toll on the locomotive, to say the least, to the point where 33 is sadly no longer operating, just because, well, it's a little bit overpowered for their liking. It's a shame because, well...
Yeah, but of course, in 2018, they repaired 33 and put it back under steam.
Sort of. But not for long.
Oh.
But either way, Lake Superior in Ishpeming 33 is quite an interesting candidate for excursion service, since one of its sisters, well, basically overtook its fame. And 33, well, it really didn't get to let loose, since it would be limited to hauling at least 3 coaches at a time, and only operating at speeds of only 20 to 30 miles an hour, which sort of fast for a Connie, but for a locomotive with 60,000 pounds of tractive effort, you'd expect them to haul a little bit more. But either way, on to number 10. U.S. Sugar number 148.
Or Florida East Coast 148.
Yes. 148 is, well, a lot of people forget this locomotive. And the thing is, this is still operating today, luckily. 148 was built in 1923, too, as a 462...
Welcome, Miss Matt.
Oh,
welcome.
Hello.
Hello!
You're just in time to help us with our top 11 underrated steam excursion stars.
Well, I don't know that much about Steam Excursion stars, but all right.
We're going to be, we're mostly here to add commentary about them, too. So after I explain number 10, we'll put our opinion in, and then we'll move on to the next one. So, currently we're going to be discussing Florida and East Coast number 148, which is a 462 Pacific built in the 20s. And, well, of course, it was built for mail and passenger service until its inevitable retirement. But it actually is one of the oldest remaining 462s left in existence, which, well, not the oldest, but is one of them. And, well, luckily still operates today. But a lot of people seem to overlook this one. In fact, it's been to say the least, people thought originally that there were only 2 462s operating in the U.S., those being 3415 and 475, which Michael got to go see recently, actually.
Yeah, the whole time in September and August.
Yes. But to say the least, it's mistaken that people overlook the 148, even though it's still operating, and most people think that it doesn't even exist. In fact, the restoration was completed earlier this year, so the fact that most people just overlook this engine is just kind of sad. Especially with its... Yeah. But either way, what would you guys do for the 148 if you had the chance? Or, if you got to see it, what do you think it would be like?
I would love to see the 148.
What are there images of 148?
Oh, there's a lot. It even has its own page.
Oh.
A pretty beautiful locomotive, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty nice. A lot. This might sound strange, but there's something about it that wait, does it have a bell pair? No, it doesn't have a bell pair. I thought it had a bell pair for a second, but yeah, there's just something about it that gives it a mix of old and new. You know what I mean? Not really something that other American Pacifics really have.
Well, speaking of Pacifics, now we go on to number 9, which is another Pacific, which I actually mentioned a little while ago. Number 9, Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 3415. The 3415 is a pretty obscure locomotive to operate in the preservation era for 3 reasons. 1, it's a Santa Fe locomotive. 2, it's a Pacific. 3, it doesn't get to run loose whatsoever. It was built in 1930 by, well, the Santa Fe themselves as a homegrown Pacific. And to say the least, this locomotive, of course, was built, well, for like any other mainline Pacific, mail and passenger, until inevitable retirement overcame them in the 1950s. 3415 was put on display in a park over in Kansas. I forgot exactly where, but, well, surprisingly, the locomotive survived the weather in a surprising way, similar to the big boy that operates today. In fact, sometimes, well, some random people would break into the park and clean up the area. It wasn't known exactly who does it, but it happens. But either way, now on to why 3415 is actually on the list. Currently, 3415 is the only operational Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe steam locomotive in the world. And, well, as I said, it's also pretty obscure for the job that it's been giving.
Yeah.
The railroad that it operates on is to say the least, the railroad itself is in need of desperate repairs, to the point where the 3415 barely gets to go over 15 miles an hour.
And I can imagine it having a large Pacific in this area would cause more wear on the tracks.
Yeah, especially with the 3415 getting to let loose. So
yeah,
I mean, even though the 3415 has been skillfully maintained, well, to be honest, we only have probably 1 more year left until she has to go under her FRA.
Oh, that means that the railway's going to not have steam, whatever, who cares?
But then again, maybe it'll give them a chance to look on the track and see if they can replace it.
Yeah,
what's the track?
Also, does that have universal or Baldwin disc drivers?
I actually forgot, but all I know is, well, here's an interesting fact about the 3415. It has 85 diameter drive wheels, and well, it actually almost broke a speed record. Almost.
Did it now?
No, I'm lying. No,
No, hold on. What I meant
But what I'm saying is it could have broke a speed record, as Mallard's drive wheels were only 80 inches. 84, of course, would create less effort into creating more speed. From what I have determined from I've been looking into designing my own steam locomotives to test in Gary's mod.
Andrew, what did I miss? Because apparently I accidentally restarted my computer.
Oh, Steven, you missed the first two candidates for the top 11 list of
East Coast 148 and LSNI 33.
Yes, those. You know the list. What the list is, right, Steven?
Yeah, although technically those previous two had already operated preservation.
No, not that list. This is the top 10 underrated Steam Excursion stars.
Oh, well, that's a shame that I missed those. Because, of course, my computer had to restart. I accidentally hit the restart button on it. Like, basically, there's like this button on the computer itself. I accidentally hit that, and of course, the slow-ass startup of Windows and all that shit. I tried to do it on my phone, but of course, I couldn't hear anything.
Also, Steam Machine, I did find out that this locomotive has universal disk drivers. That said, I heard that universal disk driver is very rare, which is also something that makes this locomotive pretty unique if you think about it.
Yeah. So to say the least, 3415 deserves this spot. Not only for being the only operational Santa Fe locomotive right now, but also, of course, because 1, doesn't get to let loose, 2, it's probably going to retire soon, and then 3, well, how unique it really is.
Yeah. One of few locomotives with universal disk drivers. Never mind one that's preserved with universal disk drivers.
This one's the only operating one.
Yeah.
Well, next is number 8. And this is a bit of a threesome, shall we say.
Okay,
It's going to be a triple bill, just like Jim's double bill.
Kinda like
question.
that.
I don't really understand the purposes of triple things. Like, are they all the same class, just with different numbers, or?
Well, you'll see. Number 8. All of the Cass Scenic Railroad geared locomotives. All 3 from 7 to 9 have been operating on the Cass Scenic Railroad for 20 years? And to say the least, they haven't really gotten the greatest fan base, even though they are some of the more powerful geared locomotives out there. And the fact that all 3 of them operated in their lifetimes mostly together is why they're all together on the same list. Even though Jim doesn't like Shays that much, but to say the least, these locomotives are greatly overlooked because there's apparently better geared locomotives out there.
Then again, Jim doesn't like a lot of things except for 7985 for some reason,
Well,
and a few others.
well,
So-
from what I have determined, he doesn't really like industrial-looking locomotives.
Well, yeah. Well, then again, the purpose of a locomotive is for industrial purposes.
Yes.
If anything, if you're in the industrial field, that makes them even better. Which is why I mostly don't really like passenger locomotives as much as I like freight locomotives. And I like passenger locomotives even more if they're in the industrialist area, right? With coal towers or like a coaling station. They're in the running sheds, right?
Yeah.
I like them in the industrial field because, well, they're machines. They're meant to be industrial.
Exactly. Well, to say the least, these locomotives, as I said, they've operated together, but haven't really been appreciated that much. And
yeah,
that's why they're number 8.
They aren't really meant to be operated outside this industrial railway because, well, I'm pretty sure a 15-mile-an-hour Shay wouldn't do so well on the main line compared to the work that it's meant to do. In fact, the whole purpose of geared locomotives is to deal with the steep grades that normal mainline locomotives can't really cope with.
Well, to say the least, that's why they're on the list. 1, underappreciation. 2, how long they've spent together. 3, running purposes, basically, to say the least. They're not meant for speed at all. They're meant for strength.
Unlike that Pacific, where, well, it is meant for speed, right?
Yeah.
These three here, at least they deserve to be, on these, more smaller scenic railways because, well, that's just about the only jobs they can do.
I just thought about this. What if 3415 and one of those geared locomotives switched places for a while? I wonder how they do.
Well, and again, I'm not too sure. I bet that the tracks that these I don't really know much about certain state railways, but I'd assume that the tracks that these shays would be in would be a little more rigid and nowhere near suited for a locomotive like, say, a large Pacific.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Well, the guys who own 3415 would be better off with the shay. But where do you think 3415 would end up?
Not too sure, to be honest.
Not really much.
Be right back.
All right. Well, next is number 7, which, to say the least, on this Discord server has its own little shrine. Number 7.
Right. Even though technically I've already covered it in one of my videos.
You have, but 1187 is, I feel like, a little bit. Oh yeah, well, number 7, Reading 1187, which I feel like is extremely underappreciated. 1, it's the only 040 tender locomotive to operate in excursion service, and it's the only one left in the world. 2, it's the only camelback to operate in excursion service. So yeah.
Technically, it's not the only 040 tender engine, because there was an engine at the Monticello Railway Museum that was just numbered number 1. Granted, it was converted into a tender engine, but still, it is a tender engine. Well, it was a tender engine at that point.
Doesn't really
back in the early 70s.
I wouldn't really count that since, well, 1187 was built as a tender engine. But either way, on to the history.
I have returned.
Well, about time you did. Unfortunately for me, I missed number 11 and 10 because I accidentally, for some reason, my computer has a restart button. I accidentally touched that somehow, like when I was trying to move it around basically the computer itself. I don't know. I was trying to plug the damn webcam in because, it has a microphone in it because it's, I don't even know it. The fucking Discord was being a bit.
I can confirm that numbers 11 and 10 were Lake Superior and Ishpeming number 33 and Florida and East Coast 148 in that order.
Yes.
Because Edgar told me so through DMs.
All right.
Also, Jen, look who also appeared in our burning subject today.
I already noticed. Greetings, Polonius nuts.
Yeah.
General Kenobi. You are a bold one. Even though you're probably not bold in real life, Polonius.
But either way, on to number 7.
I also missed out on Santa Fe 3415 from what I can see.
Yes.
And all the geared locomotives on the Cass Scenic.
Yes.
So perfectly honest, in my honest opinion, I would only go for the Heisler. Screw the shades.
Yeah, I know. That's why we actually were talking about that a little bit. But either way, on to number 7, which is something that will be easy for all of us to talk about. Reading 1187.
Yes, the little camelback boy that's over 100 years old.
The little runty boy. But either way, onto the history. I actually forgot when 1187 was built. So when was it?
1903.
Yes, 19. Okay, so it was built in 1903 as an anthracite coal burner for the Reading companies for the company as a yard switcher. And well,
Yep.
it spent 60 years as a switcher, and then it was bought by another company, which I forgot the name of, and then it was
In
bought
the
by.
40s, it was bought by the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company's E&G Brook plant in Birdsboro, Pennsylvania, and was
Yes.
renumbered to number 4. And then in 1962, it was bought by Strasbourg, of which it actually embarked on its own, little journey to Strasbourg under its own power.
So
Being the
yes,
first steam engine to arrive under its own power.
so to say the least,
And the only one, too.
1187 was the first steam locomotive to arrive under its own power to the Strasbourg Railroad.
I literally just said that.
I know. Well, I was just giving it a summary, But either way.
Yeah.
Uh.
So that's one thing that kind of bugged me. Like, the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company had a plant in Pennsylvania. I don't quite see the logic of that. But moving on to 1187, it didn't operate for very long because of its unique shortcomings.
Well, to say the least, the 1187 was built to burn anthracite coal, just like the Reading T1s. But
Or
for
every
some,
Reading locomotive, practically.
yeah, any Reading locomotive. But to say the least, because they only had bituminous coal to fire the locomotive, the boiler pressure dropped quite a bit for the 1187, and so it wasn't able to operate very long because of its low efficiency and the fact that it's a camelback. And
Yeah, they found it hard to fuel the locomotive with bituminous coal. So that in turn would kind of also mean that any camelback locomotive would struggle without the correct type of coal.
yes,
So yeah.
So to say the least, the 1187 got a not so fair chance. And then it was put right back into yard duties for runarounds at the station. But then the boiler certificate expired and it was put outside the shops.
But wait. The story doesn't really end right there because, in May of 1967, the engine did pull one final excursion. It was a Baltimore chapter NRHS special from Lehman Place Junction to the East Strasburg station. Of course, this was number 4's last revenue run.
And then it was, the fire was dropped for the last time and it was put outside while being relettered back to its original identity. But
it recently got bought by the Age of Steam Roundhouse.
Yep.
Some people call the neutral evil of steam locomotive museums and tourist railroads. But at least it's getting a cosmetic refurbishment.
Well, to say the least, the 1187 won't have such a bad future after all, since actually we don't know exactly what they're going to do with 1187. Yes, we can. The highest chance is a cosmetic restoration, which we all believe, and I do too. But there's like that 1% chance that maybe
they can probably fix the thing and get it back to running condition.
that is the smallest chance, but maybe. But either way,
Probably, I mean, again, 1187, along with other camelbacks, burns anthracite coal, and even though this would have made no sense at all, like I said in my, old Dan said it in part 3 of my retired steamers video, the best place for it to operate would probably be on the Reading and Northern.
yes,
Albeit,
because
it wouldn't be very strong for, longer trains, know.
Maybe
It would probably only like 5 cars at the most.
But either way, on to number 6, which is a very unusual Malay, and it's not 1309.
Nutty!
Number 6, Columbia River Belt Line number 7, the Skookum.
Oh, 2442.
Yes, this a very obscure locomotive was outshot. Huh? I will continue. But either way, this locomotive was outshopped by, I'm pretty sure, Baldwin, or was it Alco, in 1923, and was built as a 2442 Mallet articulated locomotive, as a logging locomotive for the company. And, well, it served the railroad for 40 years until it got into a wreck. And, well, that was when they abandoned the locomotive. But then, in the early... I actually forgot exactly when they started. But, either way, they pulled the Skookum out of its wreck site and refurbished it not only cosmetically, but to full operation. And so currently, this... And, well, it took the term Sole Survivor to also brand new heights, which made the 1218 look like a...
Another
like
Connie, how about that?
Well, I guess. But either way, the Skookum took the term Sole Survivor to new heights, being the only locomotive left in the entire world with a 2442 wheel arrangement.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Well, now you know. But to say the least...
Like, you double-checked? Like, there weren't,
yes,
there weren't any tank engines?
I triple-checked. I triple-checked. The only tank engine that I could find that was actually a Mallet was a 2662. That's all I could find. But either way, the Skookum is a sole survivor for its wheel arrangement. And not only that, currently, well, until 1309 is up and running, the Skookum is the only operational...
compound articulated locomotive that's operational.
Yes, it's the only compound articulated locomotive currently operational. And, well, to say the least...
1309 is going to be the only one operational in the east.
Yeah. Well, to say the least...
That's fair.
The Skookum, I feel like, is an underappreciated sole survivor, which most people actually didn't know was even a sole survivor until I probably mentioned it. But either way, and that is what makes Columbia River number 7 my number 6 pick. But is Dan by chance still going to join? Because number 5 is his...
It's his Canadian boy?
Yep.
Oh, he's here. He's here. He's online. He's online.
Yes.
Ask him.
Yeah. Yes, Steven?
What is it? Did I hear about it? I didn't even hear what you said. Which engine is it?
The Canadian locomotive?
A bit of a secret until we can confirm that Dan is in here.
Yes, because Dan is going to be the guy who's going to completely talk about this locomotive.
Oh, giggity.
He's going to love it. He's going to love it.
Wait. Andrew, this may be a bit of a stupid idea.
But
could you, by chance, if Dan isn't able to join right now, could you maybe split this broadcast into 2? So, like, make it a part 1 and 2 for a change?
Not really
Or
the best idea. I'd prefer not to do that. But actually, let's give it a little bit longer and let's talk about, like, what did you guys...
Honorable mentions?
Well, not honorable mentions, but let's talk about a little bit about the Skookum. Because, to say the least, well, I bet you guys are a little bit blown by the fact that it's a sole survivor of sorts.
Who's there?
It's
the Canadian boy!
Yeah, Dan is here.
Hey!
Dan,
Sorry, I'm late.
It's okay, Dan.
I was at school.
Dan, it's okay. Dan, Dan, it's okay. It's okay. Because you're gonna love this. Because number 5 on this list of the top 11 underrated Steam Excursion stars is our favorite streamlined Hudson, number 2839.
Oh.
Dan, you may take the mic.
All right. Let me just delete a picture real quick in the meme channel. That will scar you. I'll delete it.
And on my top 20 retired Steam Excursion stars, I had already talked about the locomotive.
Yes.
And it was the only streamlined locomotive on the list.
Exactly. And
allow me to talk about this boy.
Yes.
Along with her class.
Everyone, a moment of silence so that Dan may speak.
All right. Can I begin?
You may begin, comrade. Or should I say,
Alright.
comrade?
Okay, so I'm going to start off with the origin of these of 2839. 2839 was one of 25 was actually one of 65 Hudson type locomotives built for Canadian Pacific. The second largest fleet of Hudsons, right behind New York Central, actually. They were all numbered from 2800 to 2864, and 25 of these Hudsons were given the streamlining from H1Cs to H1Es, number 2820 to 2864. And in 1939, King George VI traveled across Canada, starting from Montreal, Quebec to Vancouver, British Columbia, all pulled by one of the streamlined Hudsons, number 2850. And the train, the 2850 wasn't the only locomotive that was about to pull the Royal train. There were other reserved engines that CP had planned out for the Royal train in case of 2850 needed to back down. But surprisingly, 2850 traveled all across Canada with no trouble at all, and the trip went on with a hitch. After the 1939 tour, King, just knowing how, the royal family was really impressed of how well 2850 operated. King George VI himself actually gave Canadian Pacific permission to dub their fleet of streamlined Hudsons Royal Hudsons, and thus that's how the Royal Hudsons got their name.
Wow.
And of course, dieselizations came in, and of course there was scrapping and stuff. However, out of all the 65 Hudsons built, 5 were preserved, and 4 of which are Royal Hudsons. 2839 was the fleet of H1C class of Royal Hudsons, built in 1937 by the Montreal Locomotive Works. During its career, along with the rest of the Hudsons, 2839 was known for pulling high-speed passenger trains and some occasional freight trains. When the locomotive was retired, it was going to be destined to a railway museum in Canada, but a group of owners in Pennsylvania acquired the locomotive and started this group called the Atlantic Central Group, and they've wanted. So the reason why they got 2839 was because the Atlantic Central was looking for a steam locomotive for steam excursions, and 2839 was available. And the restoration is pretty much like the story of 765. They restored it outdoors without any overhead cranes or any shop equipment, and then 2839 was finally fired up. Unfortunately, she never really got a chance to shine on the Atlantic Central because of Conrail. Conrail was a railroad that was all about making money, and they wouldn't allow 2839 to run on their rails. Fortunately, this wasn't really meant to last forever, as the Southern Railway opted to lease 2839 from the Atlantic Central, and 2839 became a star there. And she met up with multiple steam locomotives in the Southern, such as Savannah Atlanta 750, Southern 4501, 630, 722.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's great.
I think Texas and Pacific 610, and probably Chesapeake and Ohio 2716 too.
Or known as Southern 2716, but either way.
Yeah. She was and during her years on the Southern, she was given a very mind-triggering nickname for me specifically. The nickname was Beer Can, because of the cylindrical style streamlining that the CP designer H.B. Bowen opted for the CPR locomotives.
I'm not gonna laugh.
All right.
Try not to laugh challenge. I failed.
Well,
you can look at the
her
stream. You
she
can see my
started
face.
until
Anyway,
around the 70s until around the 80s. 2839 2839 was retired from the Southern, mainly due to the fact that although she had the speed for the Southern's likings, she didn't have the power. She wasn't really strong enough to pull the long trains. Almost vice versa with the Texas and Pacific 610 that I mentioned.
Powerful.
When they were trying to break Mount's record with fucking Excursion.
No. The Royal Hudsons weren't capable of doing Mallard speed. They weren't
It's a
capable.
bit of speech because they said that they believed that 610 was just not fast enough. And considering the fact that it actually ran pretty fast for a Texas type.
I mean, it is the public relations things, but anyway, after that, 2839 was sent back to the Atlantic Central, where she starred again, actually, after being stored for a while. She participated in the grand opening of the Blue Mountain and Reading Railroad, which nowadays it's called the Reading and Northern. It was for their Golden Spike ceremony. She ran a few excursions here and there, but that was really the last time 2839 ever saw excursions. After that, she was placed into storage again with a very uncertain future until the Nethercott automobile collection came in and bought her and moved her up to Sylmar, California. So, and that's where she sits today, along with a Pullman business car.
honestly,
Are they still kind of maintaining the locomotive, like cosmetic or maybe even semi-mechanical?
I'm not sure about mechanical wise, but I do know cosmetically they have done some form of cosmetic work. I mean, it probably would be. She'd probably be in decent mechanical condition, considering the fact that she's living up in California. But I'm not really too sure. But back to the whole fact about 2839 being not the only survivor. There's other survivors. There's her sister, Royal Hudson 2860. Which was she was part of the H1E classes for one of the very last Royal Hudsons built. She used to operate excursions, and she's now sitting on static display, though she is slowly getting a restoration. Then we got 2858, which is at the Canada Science and Technology Museum in Ottawa. She didn't really have a historical significance. She was just another Royal Hudson.
Just a lucky one. And then, of course, there's the Royal Hudson 2850.
Yep, the very one that pulled the Royal Train. She's now at the Canadian Railway Museum in St. Constant, Quebec.
Expo Rail.
Yeah. And then you got the non-streamlined Hudson, which never got the Royal Hudson designation.
2816.
Yep, number 2816. She was recently restored in 2001. She operated up until 2011, and she's recently earned herself. And during her years, she earned herself the nickname the Empress, all dedicated to Canadian Pacific steamships that CP once used for transatlantic service. And that is 2839's story.
yes.
And not only that, but 2839 is, I believe, one of only 2 streamlined Hudsons preserved in the States.
Well, in America in particular.
Yes, I said in the States.
Yes, and the other being a certain orange face that I won't talk about.
CNO 490.
490.
Yeah.
AKA Barf on Wheels.
Looks like a rolling banana.
I think it looks pretty.
But either way, on to number 4, which is, to be honest, I love this engine a lot. Number 4.
Why is it so quiet?
Yeah, you went a little bit quiet, like you're not that close to your mic.
because, well, to say the least, a lot of people don't really appreciate this engine. Number 4,
Oh boy.
J&L number 58.
Yes, one of the most unlikely locomotives to ever
Little
be
tiny box tank.
Yes. What is
no
deemed?
old narrow gauge boy. Not
What is-
even 2 freaking feet.
What is
We're talking
deemed?
23-inch gauge.
What is deemed as the most unlikely locomotive in the world to ever be restored? The JNL 58 was built, well, as a course of a sort of porter system for the Pennsylvania's iron works that basically smelted iron and delivered it. So the JNL 58 was actually built to be extremely heavy and basically build a lot of tractive effort. In fact, the JNL 58, when it was in operation, was calculated to be 60,000 pounds, I think, or was it 100, or was it 80,000 pounds? But either way, for an 040 tank engine, that's pretty hefty.
I got the number here.
Oh yes,
Tractive force, 16,700 pounds.
that's the tractive force. But how heavy were the locomotives?
Oh, how heavy it is. It doesn't say that in the picture that I found.
You sure?
Weight of engine. Holy crap, 93,000 pounds.
Yeah. As I said, for an 040 tank engine, that's narrow gauge. That is extremely heavy, and that
I guess-
is why the
It's a tiny powerhouse. 4,600 tons.
yeah.
Well, this goes to show little engines can do big things.
Indeed.
Either way,
For the ladies.
and that is why this little engine in particular was nicknamed the rolling ingot. Well, for 2 reasons. One, there's a giant solid steel ingot in between the two sets of drive wheels. Well, the 2 drive wheels, 2 axles. And well,
Two
of course,
driving axles.
yes, which of course gives it that extra weight. And another thing is the entire frame is made of pure cast iron. To say the least, it's earned its nickname. And well, the third reason because it looks like a ingot.
Wait, the frame is made of cast iron instead of steel?
Yep.
Wouldn't that make it brittle as fuck?
Mm. But either way,
It's a tiny engine. It ain't like it's a Burke or a Northern or anything like
Yeah.
that, or a Mountain, where it would be a lot more dangerous.
but to say the least,
Still, that kind of blows me away.
But to say the least, the JNL 58 and its other 70 brothers operated for the smelters for about 60 years. But then,
Wait, did you say brothers? Did you say brothers?
yeah, I guess.
Well, thank you so much, because I am one of the few people that actually refers to steam locomotives as keys.
Almost symmetry as the big boy.
But either way, after the Irondale and smelting shop kind of closed down, all the locomotives were either scrapped or sold. But to say the least, only 5 remain in the world, and 3 of them in particular are looking bright for a future for preservation. Well, the first one, of course, was the first one for preservation, number JNL 58. So it was looked at by a museum profession who wanted to buy the locomotive and run it, but at the time he didn't have the money, and so it was moved around quite a little bit. But the thing is, the JNL 58 itself didn't have its original saddle tanks. It's important to note that, since the original saddle tanks had actually been scrapped. But either way,
That doesn't really surprise me that that's the reason why it doesn't have its original tanks.
but either way, the 58 actually, when it was found, it wasn't found alone. It was actually found with brother engine number 57. Or was it 59? Yeah, I think it was 57. But either way, these 2 locomotives were, of course, well, the people who owned those 2 locomotives wanted to sell them badly. But the thing is, these engines were so heavy that he started taking off parts to, of course, decrease the amount of weight they would have to deal with when they had to move them. But the thing is, of course, over time, that really brought them to nothing but the frame and boiler, and barely a cab. to the point where the 58 looked like a
It looked like a scrapyard wreck.
Yeah. And the 57, well, it wasn't bought, sadly. By the time that he got his hands on the 58, the 57 had been scrapped. But 58 was the lucky one to be pulled out and restored to full operation. It only took 5 years to restore the little boy to operation. And, well, here's an interesting thing before I actually get into what it is today. The 58 is actually often known because the boiler itself was known to have overpassed it. Originally, it was designed with a 190 psi boiler, but it exceeded it by roughly 30 psi. So 120 psi is the current operating pressure for the locomotive. Pretty crazy.
You mean, wait, you said initially it was designed for 190 psi, but it overshot that by 30 psi?
Yep.
So we're talking about a boiler pressure of 220 psi.
Yep,
Jesus
220.
Christ. On a narrow gauge locomotive.
Yep, pretty crazy, huh?
Very.
But to say the least, this very obscure locomotive was restored in a pretty easy way within 5 years, with the boiler being sent off to, I think, was it Strasbourg, or where was it sent off to? But either way, the boiler was reunited with everything as of 2018, and the locomotive blew its own whistle under its own power for the first time in 70 years. And to be honest, we can all agree that this is a very obscure locomotive to restore, especially with 23-inch gauge track. But to say the least, this locomotive currently is living a pretty happy life on the Youngstown Heritage Center, where they're actually planning to get 2 more of the JNL's little brothers, number 59 and 61. The thing is, they're planning to restore one cosmetically and the other to operation. So most likely, this little railroad might become a little bit of a rival to the, what was it?
The East Broad Top?
Yes, because, well, the East Broad Top has a lot of...
That's 3-foot gauge, right?
I think so, I'm not sure.
And this is 23 inch. So
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that Tweetsy briefly had coaches from the East Broad Top in the early 60s and stuff.
What I was about to say is that I think that this little line where the JNL 58 can operate on could be like maybe the American version of the Festiniog and Wills, which operates on the same track gauge.
Well, the reason that it's on this list, and I said it multiple times, it's obscurity, and 2, well, how tiny and how powerful it actually is for a little tank engine.
Well, and it was only recently refurbished.
Well, recently. But the fact that it was refurbished at all is incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So if you by chance ever get a chance to see the JNL 58, cherish it. It's probably the smallest original steam locomotive you will ever see in excursion service. In fact, I dub it. Well, yeah, really is a little tiny chunker. And now, number 3, which is is the oldest locomotive on the list.
Is it called the General?
No. That one's overrated, in my opinion.
Because we don't want to be associated with a certain pedophile that used to be in the server.
But he was never in this server where we're in, but anyway.
No, he was in the Cylinder Cox, he was in my server.
What is this number 3 engine you're talking about, Mr. Andreas?
Number 1, the original John Bull.
Wait, that's number 3? The original John Bull?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
If you don't know, the original John.
It was British made and exported to America, so you may thank the Brits for building it in the first place.
Yes. But either way.
You know, it's a real shame I didn't put it on the list. If I knew that it was actually a Steam Excursion Star, I would have probably put it on the list. because after all, it is from another country, and it did predominantly operate an American excursion service, right?
And, well, not only that, but, well, if I get into the history, you'll see another reason why it's on this list so badly. Well,
First, it was built in 1831, in case you
yes,
didn't know. I just looked it up myself.
I already know. But either way, this locomotive was built for passenger and freight service along, well, of course, the very first parts of the American road. Well, not the road, but the railways. And, well, it was soon retired in the 1850s. And, well, I actually don't know exactly how it survived so long. But either way, the John Bull in particular on this list, it makes it number 3 because this is the most historically important locomotive, because this is the first locomotive in the world to ever be fitted with a cowcatcher, converting it from an 040 to a 240.
Oh, yeah, because the power axle is kind of embedded within the cowcatcher itself.
Yeah. And the thing is, the John Bull's carriages actually still exist today. All 3 of them. Well, there were originally 5, but 3 of them survived. Either way, they're all around the world, but the John Bull actually currently sits with a replica of one of its carriages. But in 1981, the John Bull was actually tested and fired up because the museum was wondering if it was actually it was still operable after all these years. And, well, it took them by surprise when the 108, well, currently it's 180 years old, locomotive actually was able to work under its own power and gave a few excursions before, well, only after 1 month of excursion service, the locomotive had to be retired because of historical significance, which was a pretty good call. Today, the locomotive still resides on display, luckily. The fact that this locomotive...
Its excursion service probably only lasted about as long as Canadian National 47s.
But to say the least, the John Bull being on this list at all is a pretty cherishable moment, since the fact not a lot of people talk about this engine. It's got models, and it's quite famous, actually. The fact that not a lot of people know it actually operated in excursion service is the big reason it's on this list, especially since today it's actually still here. And it's just very surprising, isn't it?
Yeah. What's number 2?
Number 2? You guys should have seen this coming, okay? To say the least. Number 2, you guys should have seen this one coming. Number 2, Texas and Pacific number 610.
Of course.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
One of only 5 remaining 210-4 Texas types.
Briefly.
Well, one of only... One of only 5 remaining 210-4 Texas types left in the world. This...
there are more.
You sure?
There are definitely more. Like, you're talking... Like when you say 5 preserved Texas types, those are all from the Santa Fe.
No. I meant in America.
Branch out a little bit beyond that. So
I meant in America.
Like
all in
Texas types preserved. Oh yeah, that too.
Oh yeah. But either way, the Texas and Pacific 610, well, mostly is sort of known from the American Freedom Train, but we'll get into that in a little bit. 610 was originally built as a superpower locomotive to operate very heavy freight trains, which, well, of course, it did its job well into the 50s. But then, well,
let's
of course,
see when it was built.
Yes, let's see, actually.
1927.
That's a pretty old Texas. Okay.
Built by Lamelo.
Well, no shit.
Well, to say the least. The 610, after it was retired, well, didn't really do much, except 2 things. Well, Ross Rowland intervened and got the 610 for the American Freedom Train, which, to be honest, sadly, a lot of people don't talk about the fact that the 610 even operated. Most people,
they usually prefer to gloss over that and cover either the 2101
or the 4449. But to say the
Because
least,
at least I mentioned it, or at least Dan mentioned it in the list.
yeah.
Technically, I wrote it.
But yeah, most people prefer to gloss over the four Texas type in favor of a pair of Northerns.
Yes.
No.
Not that said Northerns are bad, but come on. You gotta give the reduction credit.
Well,
Seriously.
610, when it ran in the American Freedom Train, it only ran in Texas, while locomotives like 44, 49, and 2101 almost like traveled the entire U.S. continent. So I really don't blame some people. I mean, I don't blame people for not acknowledging 610, but really, it is kind of unfortunate how she wasn't really mentioned.
Well, to say the least. The 610, after the American Freedom Train, it soon joined the Southern Steam Program with previously mentioned Canadian Pacific 2839, where, well, to say the least, the Texas and Pacific 610, the Texas type, was a powerful performer in the wrong way. So the 610, well, it had the strength.
Slow speed.
Yeah. When it comes to steam excursions, there needs to be an even number or even balance between speed and power.
There has to be a balance between speed and power.
And you need a compromised engine,
like a certain best Burke.
But either way, we aren't talking about that book today, are we? We're talking about the 610. 610, well, it proved to be a powerful performer when it came to pulling massive passenger trains. I mean, imagine if you could see that thing running today.
It just wouldn't be able to pull them very quickly.
Yeah. But then again, for a Texas type, the 610 was pretty fast.
Many.
Yeah.
Probably about 50 miles an hour, right?
Yeah, but then again, that's fast for a Texas type.
The Selkirks I think the Selkirks can do 60.
But as I said, it's pretty fast for a Texas type. But after the Southern used the locomotive, it was put on display. Nobody really wanted the locomotive because of its huge size, maintenance costs, and it just didn't seem practical to run anymore. So now let's press F in the chat for the forgotten American Freedom locomotive. Not really forgotten, but misunderstood.
Well, at least the Texas State Railroad locomotives got to pull the 610 out of the shed for at least.
Yeah.
By the way, there's also a little bit of a tragedy. At one time, the 610 actually was one of two preserved TNP Texas type locomotives. A second engine, number 638, had also been preserved at a railroad museum. I don't know exactly where. I don't remember exactly where, but unfortunately, that engine got vandalized beyond economic repair. So, unfortunately, it was broken up for scrap.
So 610 in one way is a survivor.
Yeah.
Well, before we go on to number one, does anyone have any honorable mentions?
I think I have a good one. The Conway Scenic 108, that's a good one. That engine, it's an engine that used to operate at the Conway Scenic. It's a little prairie type that actually, I believe, was from Texas.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I think I got one. Hopefully I'm not spoiling number one here. Another Canadian boy.
Okay.
Canadian National number 47.
Okay.
Oh my! I was just thinking that.
It's not on the list.
Hey, Jim, can you think of any UK underrated steam excursion stars you want to mention?
Let's see. One from the UK? It hasn't operated for a while. And I don't think it's that underrated, but definitely a big shout out to friggin' Evening Star. British Rail 92220. Final steam engine built by BR. And it was a 210 decapod that was capable of sped. Like the 9Fs, they could do 90 miles an hour.
What?
Let me think of an underrated.
90 miles an hour?
I know that Owen would foam over these two locomotives, even though I know that one of them is going to be coming back into operation in the future. Morris County Central 385 and 4039.
But yes, Andrew, you heard that right. A friggin' 210 decapod that can go 90 miles an hour.
How?
Magic.
They just proved to be that fast. Granted, they weren't exactly built for it, but I think that you would probably get like at least 70 miles out of them. It's like the only major problem with 9Fs today is that the driving wheels, well, the wheels on the middle driving axle where the crank is, they're blind, they're flangeless, and there were apparently some race check rails where a 9F could actually kind of ride on top and actually kind of lift itself off of the track. Which means that those that are running today are kind of confined to tourist railroads or heritage railways. But yeah, back in the old days, they were friggin' speed machines despite being built primarily for freight service.
Well, then again, I did build Little Bastard.
Ah, yes.
My,
The 060 that in Gmod manages to utterly crush Mallard's record.
I fear no engine, but that bastard.
it scares me.
I fear no man, but that thing.
It scares me.
I sense a disturbance in the force.
Another good example.
You didn't give us any crackers.
Another good example of a retired or just a steam star in general that is underrated is Clinchfield #1.
Oh yeah, small.
I wonder why I didn't mention that one. But either way, now to number 1. Drum roll, please. Okay.
Hold on. We gotta do this better.
What was that?
Hold on.
The music isn't really picking up, Jim.
But what's number 1?
Torchline and Calumet. Hecla Mining Company, number 3.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it?
Here now.
That is why it's on the list. Because this very unique Soul Survivor is a Soul Survivor for not only its wheel arrangement, not only for its class, not only for that, but for its particular type. This is a 0604 articulated steam locomotive that operates at the Henry Ford Museum. You heard me right. 0604.
Oh, now I know who you're talking about. Let me look it up.
Yes. This particular articulated little, apparently it's a tank engine, was built in 1873. And, well, it was built for hauling coal and sometimes even passengers. But most of the time...
Do you have a picture of it?
Could someone by chance...
Because I tried looking up the wheel arrangement and I only...
I'll do it.
I think it's more like an 046 or 066. Is that what it is?
No, it's an 0604.
Here you go, Jim. This is what it looks like.
Let's see, where is this?
Burning subjects.
Yeah, I would just classify that as an 064.
But
Well, thank God Nuka got to see it.
well, to say the least.
It's actually cute, to be honest.
Well, the locomotive is... Well, as he said, it's pretty cute. But to say the least, this locomotive makes the number 1 spot because this locomotive is one of only 2 remaining locomotives in the world with this sort of articulated system. Instead of the boiler cab being mounted to the frame of the drivers, the drivers actually have their own pivot away from the boiler and everything else. So basically, the drivers have their own pivot away from the boiler. And
Oh,
everything.
wait. So basically, you're telling me that the engine unit, the 6 driving wheels, that's effectively a big bogie.
Yeah.
And then it has a 4-wheeled trailing bogie underneath the bunker.
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of sort of like a so-called Meyer articulated locomotive. If
But
you don't
is
know
it?
what a Meyer is, it has 2 sets of steam cylinders and driving wheels, like the cylinder heads are pointing towards each other. So like the front unit is basically intentionally positioned backward.
But either way,
Carry on.
this locomotive was built in 1873 and hauled ore for the Coleman and Halcliffe Mining Company, of course, in Michigan. And, well, as I said, was a very unique articulated locomotive design. But, of course, when the company closed, it was actually almost sent to scrap. But it was sent and put on display in a park, and then later the Henry Ford Museum in 1969.
Nice.
But
Sexy here.
during the 80s, they started actually operating steam locomotives. And because of the rarity of this locomotive, they decided to put it into operation for excursions. And to this day, it is probably one of the most unique steam locomotives, in my opinion, operating today. Well, 1, it's small. 2, articulation. 3, you get the point. The fact that this locomotive somehow survived the Cutter's Torch with only one other brother remaining, which isn't even a direct brother, is the sole reason that this locomotive makes it my number 1 pick for the top 11 underrated steam excursion stars. So yeah.
I prefer to call it an 064 because, I consider the, bogies for the
True.
Switcher's a switcher, and that's final.
Well, to say the least, what are your thoughts on the number 1 pick?
I think it's a pretty good pick.
I didn't know what were the other locomotive choices aside from 2039, the other engines that we ended up in.
The other engines that we talked about
ones before 2839.
The other engines we talked about before 2839 were the Skookum, the 11A7, the Cass Scenic Railroad's Shays, the Santa Fe
And the
3415.
Heisler, probably. Like, did you also talk about the Heisler or only the
Yes, we
Shays?
said all the geared locomotives, period.
Yeah, just
Santa Fe 3415, Florida East Coast 148, and LS&I 33.
yes.
I'm gonna make a quick honorable mention.
Okay.
SNA 750.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, who's another one?
Like I
Another.
said, Canadian National 47.
Let's see, what's another?
Well, we also got Evening Star, like I already said.
Wait, I have one. There's a 280 that. Oh wait, a Huntington and Broadtop number 38 that operated, I believe, briefly on the Gettysburg, but then was moved to the Knox and Kane, I believe.
Oh. Here's another one from the UK. GWR 3717, better known to you and me as City of Truro.
My boy.
On our bed.
My boy.
It's best with that German door, even though that didn't actually happen in real life.
No, it doesn't, Steven.
Wait, I know another one. Atlanta and West Point 290.
Yep, that's it.
Oh! Why didn't I mention that on the list? Christopher would have loved that.
Maybe Southern Pacific 2467 would be a nice one.
Aren't both of the Pacifics a bit underrated?
Not really 2472.
What about Grand Trunk Western 4070?
Sure, that's a good enough pick.
Yeah.
I guess another honorable mention would be 722.
Yeah, kind of underrated. And then again, I don't really pay that much attention to her.
Then again, the only one that really actually introduced me to 722 was Steven. And ever since then, I've felt sad for it.
So what's the subject for next week, Andrew?
Yes. Next week, we're going to be going back to Steam programs. Try guessing which one it's going to be this time. Yep. Next week, we're going to be talking about the Norfolk Southern Steam program, the fallen kings.
Well, listen to some more information that you already know from this one.
Wait, Ennis had 2 Steam programs. Which one?
I meant like the one in the 80s, the 90s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that featured a certain articulated boy.
Which we're probably going to be pressing F for the whole time we talk about it next week. But either way.
And then the week after that, what shall we do then? Drop something, some survivors?
The week after the Norfolk Southern is just another either Scenic Railroad or another Steam program. But
Prospect Railroad.
I want to do a list of Soul Survivor locomotives.
Just a Canadian locomotive.
I got an idea. How about overrated steam excursion stars?
I already have my list planned, okay?
Locomotives.
I already have my list officially planned. So, but keep in mind, you can put ideas in the Discord server for videos, such as, well, mainly in this show we talk about scenic railroads, steam programs, top 15 whatever lists every once in a while, though. You can probably see the pattern that we have built.
Oh man, I just can't wait to do the overrated Steam Stars list if it ever happens.
It's planned, just not very soon yet.
Survivors.
Oh, I've got a few planned. What was a good one? Shit, I can't even think of any off the top of my head right now. Wait, all the UP locomotives. Steam Star locomotive. Not everyone is surviving.
We talked about that in the. I think we talked about that in the Union Pacific Steam program.
Yeah, we already talked about the UP Steam stars in episode 2.
And well, do you guys really want to know what the next top list will be?
Please let it be. Please let it be Soul Survivors. Please let it be Soul Survivors.
Not Soul Survivors, but it is coming soon. But either way, the next list is going to be. Wait for it.
Spit it out.
I'm giving you.
I'm going to have a heart attack.
Just tell us already.
All right.
Say it, you cock.
Okay. Top 10 extinct steam locomotives.
Of course.
Oh, great. That's.
I'm joking with you.
Only
I got you, didn't I? Did you think I was gonna copyright Christopher Kovacs and Steven?
and me.
Did you think I was gonna do that?
Yes.
No.
Okay. You really want to know, don't you? Top 10. This is going to be it. The top 10 most powerful steam locomotives to ever operate in the preservation era. Top 10 most powerful.
2013 win.
Well, to say the least, to make on this list, it can either be powerful when it comes to speed or strength. So you can probably, not to mention, I'm also going to be including some locomotives from the UK. So, Jim, you can probably guess one locomotive that's going to be on this list.
Wait, most powerful locomotives to ever operate in the preservation era.
Not really powerful, but most super powered, like most overpowered. well, superpower,
Yeah, here's the thing,
overpowered.
though. When it comes to powerful, I tend to think tractive effort. So,
Well, for this, we'll not only be talking about tractive effort, but we'll also be talking about sped.
well, I think you should stick to just tractive effort. In which case, I can only really think of a pair of duchesses that have operated.
Oh my.
But either way, that was this episode of Burning Subjects, and we will see you next week for the episode where we'll be talking about the Norfolk Southern Steam Program. So, as Christopher
All right,
Kovac,
goodbye. I'm actually going to look forward to that one. Okay, bye, folks. Bye.
bye.
See you later.
Good to